Well, hello everyone. Monday noon here in the inner mountain west of the United States. How are you folks? Um, yeah, Monday. And I was busily doing my thing. Well, hello, Earth Ascension. How are you doing? Claudette, good to see you. Hello, everyone. Didn't expect to see a whole lot of people in here because of the title. But hey, it tells me that, well, we all like to be aware and informed. So, this is a little different than the normal topics, but nevertheless, it's just as important. And oddly enough, as everything is in life, it's connected. It's connected to all of us. So, like I said, I wasn't even going to do this writing along. And then I just had that sense that, hey, let's put it out there. Let's tell everybody what's really going on because we live in a world of illusion. There is no doubt about it. So let me pull up something. By the way, again, hello to everybody. I want to show you this. So let me get here. There we go. So check this out, folks. This is from the AP. I, you know, I guess you could say the serendipity on this channel is, I think if we were in Vegas, we'd all be eating steak and lobster for lunch today. So check this out. Pennsylvania, Lauren Wuher wonders if her 16-month-old daughter has been harmed by tap water contaminated with toxic industrial compounds used in products like non-stick cookware. Where did we hear that? Carpets, firefighting foam, and fast food wrappers. Well, Lauren, I'd say your instincts are spot on. Henry, on the other hand, 76, rattles around his house alone at night thinking about the water his family unknowingly drank for years that was tainted by the same contaminants and the pancreatic cancers that killed his wife, Betty Jean, and two others in his household. You know, pancreatic cancer at one time used to be very rare. But, we lost Patrick Swayze to pancreatic cancer. It's, listen, direct connection to those petrochemicals. So, again, and they're not even talking about the pharmaceuticals. No publication that I can find in mainstream America or the world. Hello, Guardian. I know you listen. Why don't you do a story on all the pharmaceuticals that can't be filtered out and that has now permeated not only the water tables, but all of the aquifers in the United States, Canada, Mexico. We could just go on and on and on. Yeah, it really, really sucks. This just shows you, folks, I don't put out BS. I try to come out and just be very matter of fact with you and do it in a manner that all of us can learn and understand. This is just another situation that makes it untenable for all human life. So let's get right to it. U.S. spending on interest hits all-time high as budget deficit soars to $684 billion. We're all like heroin addicts. Every citizen of the United States, rest of the countries, we are addicted. You see, and how dumbed down we get. When I just said 684 billion, probably no one even thought anything about it. No, it's not my money. Actually, it is. And the problem is they've been stealing from you. And we're going to get into just how bad this really is. I hope, and I'm going to put this out right from the beginning, I hope that you are wise enough that you have food stored in your house. Now, according to the government, and you know how they know this? Years and years ago, probably if you're under the age of 30, it was before you were born. I was working with a group and we were dealing in complex building of algorithms in specifically grocery stores. And I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but the reason why the data from grocery stores is so much more important to the government, to the police authorities, and I did say police authorities. The United States is a police state. Just face it. You know, on the list of free countries, we're down in like number 30, way down there. So the reason why your grocery data is so important, because with that data, I know everything about you. I can actually tell you some of your vices. Now, we knew that nearly 30 years ago. So this is the problem right here. When we look at the gross national debt to GDP, gross domestic product. Now, this may be as boring as algebra, but if you stop and really get a hold of what I'm trying to tell you, you're going to be prepared. And again, I hope you have at least 30 days of food stored up in your house, because let me tell you, the average American family does not. The average American family has less than 3 days of food and virtually no water. You know what happens when the body has no water within 3 days? Yeah, you start shutting down. Your body starts consuming itself. So we're going to get into this gross domestic product. Now, I show this because this is from the U.S. Bureau of Public Debt. Back at the end of World War II, the United States literally funded and paid for World War II. Europe got off scot-free, didn't have to pay a dime. Now, they paid heavily in the amount of people that they lost to that conflict, but we're talking finance here. The United States and the American people shouldered that burden. In fact, Europe has never paid us back. Britain has never paid us back. I mean, yeah. So when you see this, this is an aberration. This is due to the war. This is not. And the key point to this line is this 100 line in 120. We've already passed the precipice of a collapse. There's no way of reckoning it. None. A collapse is the only way we're going to get out of this. And that's the reason why our politicians don't care about what they're spending. Republican, Democrat, Independent, Socialist, Conservative, doesn't matter. They're all lying to you. They're making sure that their pockets are lined. Let me tell you the problem about you Americans who vote for congressmen. You never ask your congressman or congresswoman, why do they want a salary? Why do they want a lifetime pension? Why do they want lifetime benefits? Now, if they were truly looking after you and I, they would be called statesmen, not politicians, and they would not take a dime. Our politicians today have set themselves up as overlords. They're exempt. They exempt themselves. Do you know what's so ironic about this? The United States Congress and Senate, if you and I were to do certain security trading, we would go to jail, federal prison. Our elected officials, congressmen, congresswomen, and senators, madam or sir, they can trade illegally and not have to suffer the consequences. It's the same thing they did with Obamacare. They exempted themselves. And of course, they're cronies and everything else. That's why the thing was a sham. But the point I'm trying to get to you here, folks, you don't understand. Nibiru, what's happening in space? Yeah, it's there. We cover that. But this is the thing your household, your family should be most concerned about. And here's the problem. We've already reached 105% of our gross domestic product. What is your GDP? It is the value of your country. Now, look what's happened in 2008. We were borrowing 68% of our GDP. As far as a FICA score would be concerned, we would probably have a FICA score of about 720, which is good. It's a good credit. Ideally, you like to see that below 50%. But look what happened in the Obama administration. So through the Obama administration and the House control and Senate of the Democrats, and this is where it lies, you can't hide this. They, through their reckless spending, their social reforms, have bankrupted the United States. We are technically in bankruptcy. Let me tell you, if you and your creditors were to come in and they began to do an audit and found out that you were over 100% in debt over your ability to earn or pay, you are insolvent. Now, when we start crouching to the 110, which will be there in less than 2 years at this current rate, that's the nuclear threshold. You know why your congressmen, congresswomen, senators don't give a damn about the national debt? They know as well. And it's the biggest known secret. They know we're never going to pay it back. Never. Now, if that's fraud, if you went into a situation, into a bank, and borrowed credit from creditors and lied about your deficit, that your financial position, you go to jail. Gets worse. So when you start taking into account where all this money is accounted for, we're on the hook right now. Every American citizen, every American business is on the hook for right now 21 trillion. The true debt, which we're about to get to, it's reaching nearly $200 trillion. 200 trillion. So are you getting this? This is serious. So here we go, folks. This is the financial condition of the United States of America and the citizenry of the Republic of the United States. So right now we are at our debt of 21 trillion. Debt per citizen, $65,000. Do you know 70% of all working Americans do make less than 65,000? So what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. You are a slave. You are technically an indentured servant. And by the way, this keeps going up. Debt per taxpayer. Now, for those of you who get disability checks and what have you, well, for those of us that are in the working arena, your debt, if you have a job, your debt on top of your personal debt, you owe $175,342. Pay up. Look at the U.S. spending. It's up 138% year to date. There's your federal budget deficit. U.S. federal budget deficit surplus. We haven't had a surplus since 2000. Now, here's the scary thing, folks. With the economy now growing at about 4% GDP, and that's let me tell you, you get 4%, we haven't seen that since Clinton years. So the amount of revenue we are taking in is up 75%. Look at the increase that it's happening to you right here. This is what you're paying. Average per citizen, 10,358. Average per taxpayer, $27,942. Here is where it gets to be a problem, is when we start looking at the revenue numbers and then look at the state debt, the local debt, unfunded pension liability, folks. $6 trillion. Now, when the states, the cities, the municipalities can no longer fund these pension funds, hello, Illinois, hello, Michigan, hello, Ohio, hello, New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut. Yeah. If you live in those states that your state legislators have committed you to pensions, to guarantee pensions, what happens when the money runs out and they come knocking on your door? Folks, this is so serious. Most of you can't comprehend how serious this really is. I'm living in a make-believe illusionary world. These are the hard numbers. Look at this, folks. Gross domestic product up 114%, $20 trillion. But look at what we're spending. We're 104 currently, 0.27% over 100% GDP. And we continue to spend at a deficit rate of a ratio of 39%. You look at the U.S. population, the U.S. workforce, and you can begin to see we're taking in money hand over fist. Where is this money going to? I haven't seen all that many federally funded projects. Where are we spending trillions of dollars? Now, if you look at, for instance, managing the debt, up 168%. That's why Russia and China are dumping our T-bills. And that isn't a good sign either, folks. There is a concerted effort right now between China and Russia to completely debase the greenback, changing the petrodollars to a different world standard currency. And that is the only reason our dollar is being held up, is that because so many other nations and corporations and individuals own paper. We owe them. And so it's a question, if they were to dump it, are they willing to take the loss? And then what's the alternative? This is a very interesting website. If you stay it and just watch it, when you begin to look at the small billion assets, and this is what, folks, they're borrowing on. They're counting on this. So they look at us. We're indentured servants. We're a number. We are paying the price for the extravagance of the Congress and the Senator for the last 50 years. And they laugh and they try to tell us that they're socially. They're not social anything. So look at this. Small business, they have figured that there's $12 trillion in assets and small business assets. Corporation assets, they estimate $23 trillion. Now, the household assets, that's everything you and I have bought, been recorded, that comes to $102 trillion, which gives us at a total national asset base of nearly $138 trillion. Which means that you and I, on an average asset per citizen, did you know you were so wealthy? Means that you have, according to the big piece of pie here, $419,000 per assets per citizen. That's what they barter with, folks. There are worldwide exchanges that bet on that number. That's why if you owe something to the IRS or any other type of liability, federal, state, otherwise, you can't leave the country. You can't cancel your citizenship. That's why it's so pretty. Because here's the problem. $6 trillion, and this is general accepted accounting practices. Our Social Security liability is another $17 trillion, so add that to your 6. You have a Medicare liability of $27 trillion. U.S. unfunded liabilities, $114 trillion. Meaning this. It means that you and I, as United States citizens, we owe nearly $1 million each. This is crazy. And if this doesn't just freak you out, I don't know what will. Because what I'm trying to say here, they're never going to pay it. Never. There's no plan to pay this money back. Which only leads to 2 conclusions. Either we continue on this rapid debt spending that we can't afford, or there's a collapse coming where you have to devalue the debt down to 0. Now, I've known about this since 2011, when in February of that year, when the auction for the T-bills went out and they didn't sell, there was no buyers. I was in a chauffeur-driven car. I used to live that lifestyle, folks, that where I was keeping tabs on this thing and realized that we were heading for a collapse. Didn't matter which president at this point. It's called monetizing the debt. Because you know who did buy those bonds? The Federal Reserve. Now, anyone who's done any studying on the Federal Reserve knows that we're the only free country in the world that allows a private corporation to print our money and then charge us for the privilege of borrowing our own money. That's what the Federal Reserve does. They set economic policy. They have been responsible for the last two depressions. We're just now emerging out of the depression of 2009. And this is my proof. I mean, this is nuts. This is just insanity. And guess what? Primarily Democratic states are increasing their debt, their taxes on their state citizens to the point in some states it's reaching over 200%. Don't play the lottery in Illinois. You won't, you'll get an IOU. What happens when the dominoes begin to crash? It's not going to be pretty, folks. Here you can actually go and see to the penny who owns all those T-bills. You might find it very interesting. So in here, CNBC, again, folks, there's no stopping on the debt. At some point in time, the citizenry, us, are going to have to stand up to Washington and to every state legislator and say enough is enough. You can't continue to bring in new elected officials who continue to operate the way the last ones did. You know, I say that if you're going to pass a law, then you have to eliminate 5 off the books. Do you know how many laws there are in the United States right now? State and federal? Over 5 million. You don't think you're breaking the law? 21 trillion, folks. Even if you think you're debt-free, you're not debt-free. And like I said, I knew that this wouldn't be a very exciting one. But I'm just telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is the one thing that does worry me. I don't worry about hardly anything. But this one, because I know what's coming. Most of the friends I used to have on Wall Street know it too. That's why they're getting out now. That's why you have the single largest exit of congressmen, women, and senators. They're cashing their chips out. They're getting the hell out of Dodge because they know and the thing about it is, it's so freaking fragile. The thing that some of my friends who still work the boards tell me, what they're more concerned about each morning when they turn on their computers, has the contagion started? And most likely the contagion is going to start somewhere in Asia, maybe Indo-Asia. That's the scenario. And once this contagion starts, there's no stopping it. The Federal Reserve has gone through all of its bag of tricks. And it's a perplexing thing because, you see, one of the things that I really despised about the Obama administration and the way they lied to the American public and deceived the American public is that they changed the numbers and how they account for the cost of living index. Now, those who are retired and those who are getting ready to retire becomes very important. And when you change the cost of living index and you stopped accounting for certain categories, it gave the impression that inflation was well tamed. In fact, the big problem they had, because here's what bites you. Once you violate GAAP, that's GAAP, it's General Accepted Accounting Practices, the numbers will always start coming back at you. And so when they began to take fuel cost out of that, they began to take certain food products out of that. And the problem was the American consumer was going to the grocery store each week going, wait a minute, I'm paying nearly $8 for a gallon of milk. I'm paying nearly $3 for a loaf of bread. And they know this. I live in what they would call an affluent area. Do you know how many families? I found this out yesterday in Douglas County that are going hungry, not enough food. And these are families, by the way, that are making six figures. Now, something's wrong, folks. When you have an affluent county that has to begin to open up food banks, we're finding more and more families living in cars. You see, the American consumer knows this. Look at those who have credit cards. How many of you have your credit cards? Have you ever asked yourself that when the federal lending rate was at 0.75%, why you were paying 18% or higher on your credit card, even if you had a FICO score of 800? The best score still only garners you 12 to 14%. Why? Why is it that your banks no longer pay on CDs much more than 0.5%? You do better to keep your money at home. And many people are. The problem is that you're going to be facing what Venezuela is facing. You don't hear this talked about in mainstream news or on YouTube channels. Why? Because this is real reality. And the fact is that Venezuela is most likely the beginning of this potential contagion. Look at what's happening to Venezuela, folks. It's imploding. The same thing is happening to Brazil. And as we begin to see the dominoes spill, and the World Bank, they come in. Now, they're not touching Venezuela. And that tells you how bad the problem is. The Greece contagion is still there. And now we're seeing it with Erdogan's, how shall we say, his dictatorship over in Turkey. All of these are warning signs. When you start seeing these countries, their financial currencies collapse, there's only so much that can be picked up. And that's the problem we're having in the United States. The United States literally spends nearly $1/3 trillion giving money to foreign governments. $1/3 trillion. I don't know about you, but I think our lawmakers would want to look at the American people first. Do you know how many homes, medium-priced homes, you can buy for $1/3 trillion? You would eliminate the homeless problem overnight. But no. All right. I'm sure everyone's like, what the hell is all this about? But this is important. Listen, I sit here and I keep asking myself, where is all this money going? I mean, where are we spending it? And we're spending it faster than you can print it. The true fact is the dollar bill in today's true value is worth a little over a penny. And that might be stretching it. $1 is worth 1 penny. Thank you, Mother Nature. Appreciate it. folks, something's going on. I'm bringing this from a different angle that no one on YouTube is covering. I'm saying, look at the financial situation, something they're telling us. They're not planning to pay this back. So what are they planning? What is the plan? Because at some point in time, the bill comes due. I mean, do we continue to sell physical land to the Chinese government? That was the Obama's administration's answer, was to sell hard real estate assets to the Chinese. Is that the answer? That what we carve the United States up to the highest bidder, and then us citizens, we deal with the aftermath? I don't like that scenario at all. Do we see the Russian troops that are being trained right north of me, that have been being trained? And these are bad dudes, man. These are the worst of the worst. What are they doing here in Colorado being trained? Is what I want to know. The question all of us should be asking, every politician, every time you go, if you go to town meetings of your congressman, ask them, what are they going to do? And tell them, give up your salary, give up your pension, give up your health care. If you truly believe that you're there to help the American people, then be a statesman. Don't take a dime and come in, because right now there's no incentive. Do you know the minute you elect a congressperson, man or woman, they get a lifetime pension, $127,000 a year plus free medical. They pay no taxes and they get their Social Security. And depending if they sit on a committee, they get even more money. Do you know that? Hello, folks in Detroit. Hello, folks in Philadelphia. Do you know that that's what you're doing? Every time you reelect that politician, all you're doing is making sure that they live a life of comfort for the rest of their lives. And they don't give a damn about you. We're heading for a bad, bad scenario. Listen, I'm all about pixies, unicorns, and ascension. But I'm going to tell you what, when you're seeking a higher ascension, when the fact that you can't go to the store and buy food, because guess what? There ain't no store open, no bank. Right now, I got an alert from the FBI last night that there is a huge scam. Watch your ATM, folks. There is a worldwide effort, and I'll just read it to you, how it came across to me. Give me 1 second. Yeah. They have been phishing individuals' debit cards, hacking into what they call secondary information systems that all tie to your banks or credit cards. And this scam that they're supposedly putting out there, that they're going to start hitting ATMs. Last time they did this, they got away with a pretty good amount of money worldwide. Folks, it's just, anyway, I think I've said all I'm going to say. Tonight, join me with Dr. Albers. We're going to be talking more about Jupiter. And I got to tell you what, Saturday night, I was out there with my telescope. I'm going to show you the video I taped while I was out there. And I swear to you, folks, Jupiter was eclipsed. Got my wife. Drug her outside. I said, you've got to look at this. What do you see? Jupiter was eclipsed. No way that it could have been eclipsed. But anyway, it's weird. So, folks, I appreciate all of you. I try to do my best in, hey, we all have a chance to laugh a little bit. we cover a lot of serious stuff, but this is serious. And I can only tell you the facts. I did not hype anything up. I did not add to anything. I just merely showed the reality of the situation. And I hope maybe we can do something about it. Because if we don't, when it happens, they're not going to warn us about it. They will be taken care of. You and I are going to be left up here dealing with it's not going to be a very pretty picture, folks. I've seen the most enlightened people. And when you start going hungry for 3 days, that begins to overrule that inner soul. Unless you're really well grounded, unless you know how to meditate and to fast, my problem is what happens. And by the way, here in Colorado, we have some of the strangest thing with animals. Little off the track, but just about 15 miles to the west of us, a woman comes home, finds her cat dead, but what she found in her living room was the reason why her cat was dead. She found a mountain lion. Now, we watched a bear break into a house. The people were home. And this bear stood about, 6 foot, maybe close to 7, got into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator like it knew exactly what that thing is. So I guess there's a memo out there with all the bears that, they teach you how to get into the refrigerator. So, yeah. Folks, I do believe that within a community, there's strength. I really do that. And I know that we're separated by many miles. And, if this medium ever went down, I'd never be able to get in touch with any of you folks and vice versa. But while we do got the time, we can make friendships, we can form bonds, and we can continue to at least educate ourselves. And I think that's the noblest thing that any person can do for their fellow man or woman. So, all right, folks, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for tuning in. To all my European audience, thank you. For the folks over in Asia, thank you as well. US goes without saying. Australia, want to remember you. Folks in Japan. Anyway, all my best to you. See you tonight with Dr. Albers. Be good to yourselves. And folks, I'll pass on something to you. There's 3 things that you can buy in bulk that don't cost a lot of money and will keep you alive. Number 1, pinto beans. Seriously. Every family should have at least 25 pounds of pinto beans in their house. The other thing you should have that coincides with those pinto beans is that you should have at least 25 pounds or more of rice. Now, with those 2 there, if you have water, you'll be able to live. Now, if you have a little bit more, think about getting 5-gallon pails of sugar, brown sugar, honey. Now, we bought ours a long time ago, but you can buy 5-gallon buckets of raw honey. They are worth a king's ransom. Why you should have at least a gallon of honey in your house. Honey is antibacterial. Honey is one of the best superfoods that's out there. It does not spoil. It does not rot. And you can add it to the rice, and now you've got breakfast. So, folks, we have pinto beans. I like beans. We have black beans and red beans and rice. Exactly. Hey, Brian, that's a fact. It's one of my favorite foods. When I went to New Orleans, one of the best places, I stayed at the Pavilion, and there was a neighborhood restaurant right down the street. And I'm going to tell you what, folks, There's three things I really like. Red beans. I'll take a little rice, but I love collard greens and okra. I know. So, yeah, no rice from China. That's a billionaire in my matrix. That's a very good point. Get it grown domestically here. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. But those are the things you should have. The other thing I'd encourage you, and I know I hate the idea of the plastic, but there's no way of getting around it. Make sure you have yourself at least 5 or 10 gallons of good potable water. And, you know, if the proverbial kimchi hits the fan, at least you're going to be fed, and that helps a lot. It's better than going hungry, isn't it? All right, folks, be good to yourselves. We'll see you again. Thank you for tuning in. This has been fun. I know it sucked, the subject did, but hey, that one I think we could probably, if we could just find some good, honorable men and women. The problem is, most that I see running for Congress today, they all lie. They all lie. I'll tell you what, if there was a congressperson or senator that would stand up and say, I'm not taking a salary, I'm not taking any benefits, we're going to get this financial situation and it's going to hurt, that's the guy that woman, we all should get around. Socialism is not the answer, never has been. Listen, the best way we do is that our lot in life is that we work. Now, if we can do what we've been talented to do, what we were destined to do as a living, well, then I think our society would be much better. Think out of the box. All right, folks. Hey, I appreciate all of you. I'll see you tonight at 7 o'clock Mountain Time. All right, folks, be good to yourself. Bye-bye.